It began as just another quiet cycle across the stars. The Draconian Empire had been expanding for centuries, crushing smaller worlds and claiming their resources without mercy. They were proud, confident, and feared by almost every known civilization. When their scouts discovered a small blue planet on the edge of an unimportant system, they saw nothing but another easy victory. Earth looked peaceful, even primitive. Its surface was mostly water. Its technology advanced but limited compared to the great empires of the galaxy. The Draconian commanders laughed when they saw humans walking on two legs, still bound to their own planet. They had no idea that this small world carried something far more dangerous than any fleet they had ever faced. The invasion order came fast. 600 ships, battle cruisers, destroyers, and carriers, jumped through the void and appeared near the edge of Earth's solar system. Their arrival went almost unnoticed. To them, Earth was a prize waiting to be taken. But to those who lived there, something felt wrong that day. Astronomers on Earth suddenly noticed strange energy spikes near Jupiter. They couldn't understand what they were seeing, but they knew it wasn't natural. Governments stayed silent. Military satellites adjusted positions quietly. For ordinary people, life went on as usual, yet some could feel a strange pressure in the air, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The Draconian fleet began its approach. Their ships were enormous, dark-scaled vessels shaped like blades. Communication among them was filled with confidence. They had conquered countless planets. This one would fall just as easily. The only question was what kind of resistance they might face. None of them expected silence. Earth didn't send warnings, threats, or surrender messages. It just stayed quiet, waiting. Hours later, the first ships crossed Mars's orbit. That's when the strange signals began. The Draconian sensors picked up deep vibrations coming from Earth's oceans, frequencies so low and ancient that even their translation systems couldn't classify them. At first they ignored it, thinking it was just noise from the planet's magnetic field. But then one of the smaller scout ships vanished. It disappeared from the network. No explosion, no debris, no last transmission. One moment it was there, the next it wasn't. The fleet commander ordered a scan of the area, but all readings came back normal. Still, he felt uneasy. He told his officers to keep their weapons ready and proceed carefully. As they drew closer, the disturbances grew stronger. Some of the Draconian pilots started hearing strange echoes through their comms, distant, almost like whispering. The sound wasn't mechanical. It felt alive. Engineers blamed system glitches. But when they tried to reset the controls, many screens showed one repeating line of code in an ancient Terran language. Do not wake it. The fleet commander dismissed it as human propaganda. He ordered the main assault group to enter orbit. The ships lined up, preparing to fire. But then the stars around them seemed to dim. Their radar went black for 2 full seconds, and when it came back online, half of their formation was gone. On Earth, no one spoke about it publicly, but those in military control rooms saw everything. A massive distortion appeared above the planet's atmosphere. It wasn't visible to the human eye, just a ripple like heat bending light. Some thought it was a glitch in the satellite feed. Others knew better. Whatever it was, it came from the ocean, not from the sky. In the Draconian flagship, panic broke out. Every attempt to contact the missing ships failed. Some officers screamed that they saw shapes moving inside the distortion, something huge like shadows beneath deep water, even though they were in space. The commander demanded all remaining ships retreat and regroup near the moon. They never made it. Transmission logs captured their final words. One voice shouted, "It's coming from below!" Another said, "We shouldn't have come here." Then silence. The last sound recorded was a deep, slow pulse, like a heartbeat that shook the audiometers until they broke. Hours later, deep space probes detected nothing left of the Draconian fleet. No metal fragments, no radiation, no trace at all. It was as if 600 ships had never existed. The Galactic Council received fragments of the last communication, but chose not to share it with the public. Officially, the fleet was listed as missing in action. Unofficially, rumors spread like fire. Across nearby systems, traders whispered that Earth wasn't what it seemed. Some said the humans had built a secret weapon that could bend space itself. Others believed that something ancient was sleeping under the planet's oceans, and the Draconians had accidentally woken it. But no one could prove anything. The humans gave no explanation. They didn't need to. On Earth, life continued normally. People went to work, children went to school, and news outlets talked about politics, sports, and weather. The ordinary population had no idea that an entire alien armada had just vanished outside their atmosphere. Only a handful of officials and scientists knew, and even they couldn't explain how it happened. A small meeting was held in a sealed room beneath the Pacific Command Center. No one recorded the conversation. One scientist asked the question that had been haunting everyone. Did it wake up? The room fell silent. An older officer finally answered, "We don't know. But the readings from the ocean floor are rising again." Far below the waves, sensors picked up movements. Slow, rhythmic, like something breathing. Seismic detectors shook slightly, then went still again. Whatever had happened to the Draconians seemed connected to that place. But no one dared to send another probe. Last time they tried, the equipment never came back. In the following days, a few stray Draconian distress signals appeared in deep space. They were faint, broken, and filled with static. Most of the audio was useless, except for one part. A terrified voice said, "It's not a weapon, it's alive." Then the message cut off forever. The Galactic Council demanded answers. They sent a message to Earth, politely asking for an explanation. Humanity replied only once through a short transmission. The Draconians violated restricted space. Nothing more. No apology, no anger, just a warning hidden inside calm words. That single statement sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Restricted space? No one had ever heard of Earth having such a status. Yet older records began to resurface. Classified archives from ancient civilizations hinted that long before humans evolved, their planet had already been marked as forbidden. The reason was lost in time. Many believed Earth itself was alive or that it protected something sleeping within it. Some scientists thought it might be an artificial world built around a powerful core. Others laughed and said these were myths. But those who had seen the Draconian disappearance firsthand weren't laughing. In dark corners of the galaxy, entire species began redrawing their star maps to avoid Earth's system. The Council tried to calm the fear, but even they couldn't explain the truth. Every time someone sent drones or probes toward the planet, they stopped transmitting once they passed the orbit of Mars. Nothing ever came back. On Earth, the oceans remained calm. The tides moved as usual. The skies stayed blue, and humanity kept silent. They didn't speak about what protected them, nor did they need to. The world had always guarded its own secrets. For those few who had clearance to see classified reports, one pattern was impossible to ignore. Centuries ago, when early humans first began using sonar in the deep ocean, they picked up echoes of something massive, buried far beneath the crust. Some described it as a structure. Others called it a creature. The scientists who studied it disagreed on everything except one detail. It wasn't sleeping in the usual sense. It was waiting. The Draconians had stumbled upon that truth the hard way. They had come to conquer a simple planet and met something older than their own sun, something that didn't attack out of rage or defense, it simply erased them. Like a dream brushing away dust. And somewhere in the quiet depths of Earth's waters where light never reaches, a faint vibration continued, slow, steady, endless. Those who listened long enough claimed it almost sounded like breathing. The galaxy would never know what really happened that day. The official story remained hidden behind bureaucratic silence. But in secret meetings among frightened ambassadors and shaken scientists, one sentence kept repeating, "If the Draconians are gone, what did they wake up?" No one dared to answer, because maybe deep down they already knew. After the Draconian fleet vanished, the galaxy changed quietly. No one wanted to admit it out loud, but everyone felt it. Something had shifted. Entire governments began moving resources away from Earth's part of space, pretending it was because of strategic realignment. But the truth was simpler. They were afraid. Trade routes were redrawn overnight. Ships that used to travel near the solar system stopped doing so. Merchant guilds removed Earth from their maps. Even the Galactic Council avoided saying the planet's name during meetings, as if speaking it might invite trouble. The disappearance of 600 ships was not a mystery, it was a warning. Inside the council chambers, tension grew with every passing week. The Draconians had been one of the most powerful empires in the known galaxy. Their technology, their fleet, their soldiers all gone, erased as if they had never existed. Other races feared they might be next. Yet no one dared to confront Earth. Rumors spread faster than light. Some said humans had built a new kind of weapon, something that could fold time itself. Others whispered that humanity had made contact with something ancient, something not even the oldest alien archives could describe. A few even believed the humans weren't the true masters of Earth at all, but only its caretakers. Across distant worlds, small groups of explorers and scientists tried to uncover the truth. They searched through forgotten databases, ancient ruins, and old galactic records. One by one, they began to notice a strange pattern. References to Earth appeared in records thousands of years old, long before humans were supposed to exist. The entries were often brief and mysterious. Unstable world, forbidden planet, or dormant power detected. None of them explained what that power was. Meanwhile, deep inside Earth's defense network, something was changing too. In hidden bunkers and secret stations floating above the planet, human officials were not celebrating victory. They were afraid as well. They didn't fully understand what had happened to the Draconians. They only knew that something ancient, something they had promised never to disturb, had awakened for a brief moment and then gone silent again. One late night, a meeting took place in a high-security facility under the North Atlantic. Only a few people were allowed inside. Screens flickered with static as satellite feeds showed calm oceans and quiet skies. But the data told a different story. Massive energy fluctuations beneath the Pacific, like something alive was moving deep under the crust. An older officer spoke quietly. "It's not gone. It's watching again." No one replied. The silence in that room was heavier than fear itself. They all remembered the ancient warning passed down through generations of scientists and military leaders. Never disturb the depths. Far beyond Earth, in the cold void, a small probe from a neutral civilization drifted toward the planet. It was unmanned, designed only to gather readings. The Council wanted answers, but no species dared to send their own people. When the probe crossed the orbit of Mars, it began transmitting data, gravity waves, energy readings, radiation scans. Everything seemed normal. Then suddenly it stopped. For 2 minutes, nothing came through. Then the signal returned, filled with strange noise, long, low-frequency pulses. The data analysts couldn't decode it. It wasn't random and it wasn't natural. It almost sounded like a voice, deep and slow, speaking in a rhythm that matched no known language. The probe's feed ended with a single frame showing something massive in the darkness, curved, metallic, and alive. Then it vanished completely. The Council declared the incident classified. They told the public the probe had malfunctioned. But inside, fear grew. Even the oldest civilizations had never seen technology that could erase signals across multiple dimensions. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a warning to stay away. A few months later, strange things began happening near Earth again. A cargo ship passing by the edge of the system reported seeing lights beneath the surface of the oceans, visible even from orbit. The crew described them as moving patterns, like veins glowing with blue fire across the planet. The report was quickly deleted from the galactic network, but copies of it spread secretly. Scientists on distant stations tried to study the transmission. Some believed the patterns were communication signals, a language made of light and rhythm. Others thought it was a defense mechanism, a way of scanning the skies for threats. Whatever it wasn't random. Something on Earth was aware. Inside human command centers, the atmosphere was growing tense. The event with the Draconians had made Earth untouchable, but it also left questions that no one wanted to ask. What exactly lived beneath the oceans? And if it could erase an entire fleet, what would happen if it ever decided humanity was no longer worth protecting? One scientist, tired of silence, tried to send a deep-sea probe into the trench where the readings were strongest. The operation lasted only a few minutes. The probe descended smoothly at first, sending back clear images of dark rock and endless water. Then it began to shake. The last frame it transmitted showed something impossible, an eye larger than the probe itself opening slowly in the darkness. The feed cut out instantly. The scientist was removed from his position the next day. The official report said the mission had failed due to technical failure. But those who saw the footage could never forget what they'd seen. At the same time, strange interference began spreading across galactic communication systems. Messages that mentioned Earth were often corrupted or delayed. Some even vanished mid-transmission. Engineers tried to fix the issue, but every attempt led to new system errors. It was as if the universe itself didn't want anyone to talk about that planet. Then came the leak. A piece of encrypted data began circulating on the black channels of the galactic net. It was said to be from one of the last Draconian ships. Most dismissed it as fake, but the ones who heard it never forgot it. The recording was filled with static and screaming, but buried under the noise was a single repeating sound, deep, slow, and thunderous. Analysts tried to match it with known sound databases and found only one similarity: the heartbeat patterns of large oceanic creatures from Earth. The galaxy erupted in fear. Was Earth hiding a living weapon? Was this heartbeat the same force that destroyed the Draconian fleet? Some believed it was an ancient guardian, a being that protected the planet from outsiders. Others said it was a prison, holding something too dangerous to ever be released. Either way, no one wanted to find out. For the next few months, Earth stayed completely silent. No communication with the Council. No statements, no answers, nothing. Their silence spoke louder than any declaration of war could. The message was clear: stay away. But curiosity is powerful, especially among those who have always felt superior. A private group of explorers decided to see the truth for themselves. They were funded by a wealthy syndicate that believed the stories were exaggerated. They sent a small stealth ship toward Earth, hiding behind asteroid shadows to avoid detection. As they neared the planet, their scanners went wild. Every reading was unstable. They saw flashes beneath the clouds, massive shapes moving under the surface of the ocean larger than any known creature. The pilot hesitated but continued. Then the sky above them flickered. Not lightning, not plasma, something else. Their navigation system stopped responding. The ship's lights went out. In total darkness, one of the crew members whispered, "It's watching us." Seconds later, the transmission ended. The ship was never seen again. When the Council received fragments of their signal, they sealed the case immediately. Officially, it was called a deep space accident, but everyone knew what that really meant. Another warning had been given. Back on Earth, people still lived normal lives, unaware of what their planet was hiding. Children played by the beaches, never knowing that something beneath the waves had destroyed a galactic empire. But deep in secure facilities, scientists monitored oceanic patterns day and night. They didn't look for threats from the stars anymore. They watched the sea. Late one night, a tremor was detected deep beneath the Pacific. It wasn't an earthquake, it was too slow, too rhythmic. The same pulse that had terrified the Draconians echoed again, faint but unmistakable. The staff stared at the screens in silence. The readings faded a few minutes later, but everyone knew what it meant. The thing below hadn't gone back to sleep. It was still awake, still watching, and maybe waiting. The human government didn't release a statement, and the Council didn't dare ask again. The galaxy learned a silent truth. Earth was not a weak planet, it was a door to something vast, ancient, and patient. And whoever tried to force it open would never return. Far beneath the calm oceans where sunlight never reaches, something moved once more. It was slow, careful and deliberate, as if stretching after a long rest. The water trembled around it. The heartbeat returned, deep, steady, endless. And in that rhythm, somewhere between fear and wonder, the universe held its breath again. After months of silence, the galaxy began to settle again, though not peacefully. Everyone tried to act normal, but fear had already sunk deep into every government and every ship captain's heart. The Draconians' disappearance was no longer front-page news, but it was never forgotten. It lingered in conversations, in the uneasy looks shared across council tables, and in the long pauses before decisions. No one dared to say it directly, but everyone thought the same thing. Earth was dangerous, and yet Earth said nothing. It didn't boast, didn't warn, didn't explain. The planet simply continued spinning quietly around its sun as if nothing had happened. Its people lived normal lives, building, dreaming, and arguing over small things, never knowing that the entire galaxy now looked at their world with silent terror. But not everyone was afraid. Some were curious. Some wanted answers. The Galactic Council had too many questions to ignore, and after much debate, they finally decided to reach out to Earth again. A message was sent, respectful and careful, asking for a diplomatic meeting. Weeks passed. No answer came. Then, without warning, Earth replied with a simple, short message: "You are welcome to visit if you accept the conditions." The message ended there. No one knew what those conditions were, But the council interpreted it as an opening, a rare chance to understand what really happened to the Draconian fleet. So they sent a delegation, not of soldiers but of diplomats and scientists. Their ship approached the solar system slowly, every system on high alert. They had heard stories about how any foreign vessel that got too close could vanish without a trace. But as they crossed Jupiter's orbit, nothing happened. It was quiet. Too quiet. When they reached Earth's orbit, they were met not by a swarm of human ships, but by a single vessel. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was black and smooth with no visible engines or lights. It didn't look built, it looked grown. The council ship received a transmission. Follow. Do not scan. They obeyed. The strange vessel led them down through the atmosphere, through layers of cloud until they hovered above the Pacific Ocean. The water below was calm, stretching endlessly, blue and peaceful. For a moment, the visitors wondered if all the stories had been lies. Then they saw it. Far below, deep under the surface, faint lights moved. Not random, not natural. They pulsed in perfect rhythm, spreading across the water like living veins. The diplomats stared in silence, unable to look away. One of them whispered, "It's alive." The ship descended lower until they could see massive shadows moving beneath the waves. They were too big to understand, too vast to measure, and yet the sea remained calm as if holding its breath. A voice came through their communication system, calm, human, and cold. "You are witnessing our guardian. It does not attack unless provoked." The Draconians did not listen. "You will." The visitors tried to ask questions, but the voice ignored them. It continued speaking, not to explain, but to warn. Earth is not what you believe. This world is older than your empires, older than your stars. We are its children, not its masters. We protect what sleeps below. The delegation was silent. They wanted to ask what exactly sleeps below, but they couldn't find the courage. Something about the voice and the calm way it spoke made them realize they were standing near something far beyond their understanding. After a few minutes, the ship began to rise. The ocean grew still again. The lights under the surface dimmed and vanished. Then the voice spoke one last time. "Leave now. Tell your worlds the truth. Do not return." The visitors left Earth's orbit without a word. Their report to the Galactic Council was brief but unforgettable. They described what they saw as a planetary defense organism of unimaginable scale and intelligence. Some thought it was mechanical, others biological, but all agreed it was alive, and that it obeyed no known science. The Council immediately sealed the report. Only a few officials ever read it. The public was told nothing. The galaxy kept spinning, pretending everything was fine, but the shadow of fear grew larger. The name Earth became a whisper no one wanted to speak. Meanwhile, on Earth, life remained normal. The governments had no need to announce anything. People went to work, celebrated birthdays, and watched the tides rise and fall, completely unaware that their oceans hid the most powerful being in known space. Only a small group of leaders and scientists carried the heavy truth. In one underground facility near the coast, a meeting took place late at night. A general stood by a glowing screen showing seismic readings from the Pacific. "It's been quiet," he said, "but the pulse hasn't stopped." A scientist beside him nodded. "It's dormant, not asleep. It's aware of everything happening up there. The moment another fleet enters the system, it'll wake again." The general looked tired. "How long can we keep the truth hidden?" The scientist replied softly. "As long as people believe they're safe. The day they find out what lives under them, fear will do more damage than any war." The room fell silent. On the monitor, the ocean's readings pulsed slowly, a deep, rhythmic beat steady as a heartbeat, far beyond Earth. The Galactic Council tried to contain panic, but information could never be completely hidden. Fragments of the delegation's recordings leaked into the underground data markets. Some of the footage showed the faint glowing veins under Earth's oceans. Others contained audio of that deep, resonant hum, the same sound found in the Draconian distress calls. The leak spread like wildfire. Within days, thousands of civilizations heard the sound. Some described it as terrifying, others as oddly calm. But every listener felt the same strange sensation, like something ancient and enormous was staring back through the sound. New theories filled the galactic networks. Some claimed the creature beneath Earth was a living supercomputer, built by an unknown ancient race to protect the planet. Others said it was part of the planet itself, a consciousness born from its oceans. A few even suggested that Earth wasn't a planet at all but a vessel, a living ship that carried life across galaxies. No one could agree. But one truth became clear: Earth was untouchable. A few reckless empires tried to challenge that. A small fleet of mercenary ships hired by a rival power attempted to approach Earth secretly, hoping to gather samples or proof of the creature. They disappeared before reaching lunar orbit. Their last transmission contained a single word: listen. When their signal was analyzed, the same deep pulse was found in the background, repeating endlessly. After that, no one else tried. The solar system was quietly declared a neutral, forbidden zone. All travel routes were redirected. The galaxy moved on, pretending to forget, but fear has a long memory. Back on Earth, things were far less calm than they appeared. Deep-sea scanners had begun to pick up new patterns in the ocean floor. Movements, shifting energy, slow and deliberate. Some scientists believed the creature was communicating again, not with words, but with signals. In one late-night recording, the sensors caught a strange vibration that, when translated into human sound, almost resembled a voice. The words were faint, broken, but clear enough to chill the room. They will come again. The next morning, that message reached the highest levels of command. Emergency meetings were held across the planet. If the creature's warning was true, it meant that another invasion could be coming. Not from the Draconians, but from others curious enough to test their luck. Humanity began to prepare quietly. Massive ships unseen by the public were constructed in hidden orbital docks. These ships were black, smooth, and silent, made not from ordinary materials but from a strange biometal grown deep below the Earth's surface. The same substance that the creature used. These weren't warships in the traditional sense. They were extensions of the planet itself, built from its living matter. When they powered up for the first time, the ocean sensors picked up a responding pulse from below, like a heartbeat recognizing its own echo. The scientists who witnessed it didn't speak for hours. One of them finally said, "It's helping us." Another corrected softly, "No, it's reminding us who's really in charge." For the first time in history, humanity wasn't building weapons against the stars. They were building them with something far older, something that didn't see the galaxy as vast, but small. The galaxy didn't know it yet. But a new power had begun to rise, one that didn't shout or conquer, one that simply existed quietly and unchallenged, watched over by an ancient guardian that never truly slept. And deep below the calm surface of Earth's oceans, the heartbeat continued, slow, endless, and patient because the creature knew something no one else did. The stars were stirring again, and this time if they came for Earth it would not just defend, it would awaken. The galaxy had tried to forget, but silence never lasts forever. Time moved forward, yet the memory of the vanished Draconian fleet still haunted every corner of space. Traders spoke in whispers. Pilots changed routes to avoid Earth's system. Some called it superstition, others called it wisdom. The truth, though, was far darker and far older than anyone wanted to believe. Months had passed since the last warning signal from Earth's oceans. For a while it seemed like everything had gone back to normal. No tremors, no strange lights, no deep pulses from the sea. Humanity relaxed again, or at least pretended to. People filled cities, laughter returned to the streets, and screens were once again filled with news of daily life, politics, entertainment, weather, everything except the thing that slept beneath them. But in secret, the world's top scientists and military leaders knew the peace wouldn't last. The creature had spoken once through vibrations, sending a message that still echoed in their minds. They will come again. It wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Far beyond the solar system, that prediction began to come true. Unmanned probes detected strange movements near the outer edge of the Milky Way. A collection of ships, not Draconian, but from several other species, had gathered together. They were forming a new fleet. This time it wasn't an invasion. At least that's what they told themselves. They called it an observation mission. Their real goal, however, was the same one the Draconians had: to uncover what made Earth untouchable. When the first signal reached human command, a quiet tension filled every hidden control room on the planet. Monitors glowed in dim lights as data streamed in. The readings were clear. An unknown armada was entering the outer system. It wasn't large, maybe 40 ships, but it was powerful. Every one of them carried enough firepower to level a planet. Inside a deep facility under the Pacific, a small team of scientists stared at the data in silence. The lead officer broke it first. "They're testing us," he said. "They want to see what really happened last time." A young technician swallowed hard. "What do we do?" The officer gave a simple answer. "We watch, just like it watches." Above the planet, Earth's orbital defense network activated silently. The black ships, and the same ones built from biometal, began to move into formation. They didn't make a sound. No lights, no visible weapons, nothing that looked threatening. To the approaching fleet, they appeared like shadows drifting across the stars. The foreign ships slowed as they neared Jupiter. They weren't stupid. They had seen the reports, the leaked footage, the faint heartbeat that had terrified even the bravest. Still, curiosity is a dangerous thing. They launched their scanners toward Earth, breaking the unspoken rule: do not probe the planet. The moment the scanners activated, everything changed. Every sensor aboard the alien ships went dark. Power systems flickered. Engines failed. Communication lines filled with static. Then faintly a sound came through, a deep, slow pulse. It was the same heartbeat that had been recorded years ago, but this time it was louder. It wasn't coming from the ocean. It was coming from space. The foreign commanders panicked, ordering an emergency retreat, but their ships refused to move. Something invisible was holding them still, not physically, but gravitationally. The space around them rippled like water. Some of the crew described it as if the stars themselves were bending. Back on Earth, the scientists saw the readings spike to levels never recorded before. The creature, whatever it truly was, and was awake again. They watched as the pulse frequency rose steadily. A low vibration filled the command room, faint but real, as though the planet itself was breathing through the walls. On the monitors, the alien ships began to drift apart. Their hulls shimmered, their engines burned white, and then, nothing. No explosion, no debris, just empty space. The fleet was gone. The readings returned to normal. The heartbeat faded. The sky was calm again. The world leaders watching from underground barely spoke. One of them finally said, "It didn't destroy them. It erased them." Another whispered, "It protects itself." And us. A heavy silence followed. Everyone in that room understood the truth. Humanity wasn't in control. They never had been. While the rest of the galaxy trembled, humans on the surface continued their daily routines, unaware that they were being guarded by something no one could explain. Only a handful of people knew what had happened that day, and they were sworn to silence. Still, the world itself seemed to sense something had changed. Animals became restless near the coasts. Strange lights appeared deep under the ocean, moving in slow, deliberate patterns. The air above the Pacific carried a faint hum that no instrument could record. It was as if the planet was whispering again. Far across space, the Galactic Council met in secret. For the first time in centuries, they were united in fear. The destruction of the Second Fleet left no room for doubt. Earth was not just dangerous, it was sacred. Some wanted to declare it off limits forever. Others argued they needed to understand what kind of power could defy every law of physics. A single mistake could end them all, but ignorance, they feared, was worse. One council member spoke what others dared not. Maybe it isn't a creature. Maybe it's the planet itself. Maybe Earth is alive. That statement changed everything. Scholars, priests, and scientists across hundreds of worlds began to debate the idea. If Earth was alive, if it had a will, what was humanity's role? Were humans its children? Or just guests? The galaxy, once full of pride and control, now felt small. On Earth, deep within the Pacific Command Base, the monitoring stations continued to record faint readings. Day by day, the vibrations under the ocean grew softer but never disappeared. The creature, or guardian, seemed to have returned to its long slumber. Yet one pattern kept repeating. Every few hours, a new pulse appeared, like a signal sent outward into space. It wasn't random. It was communication. Scientists traced the signal's path and discovered something shocking. It wasn't aimed at Earth. It was reaching out into deep space toward a part of the galaxy no one had explored, a region marked as void, empty of stars. They didn't understand what it meant. Was it calling for something? Warning something? No one knew. The discovery was hidden immediately. Publicly, the world went on as if nothing had changed. But inside government circles, unease grew. The creature had always reacted defensively before. Now it was acting first. Whatever it was doing, it was no longer just sleeping. Late one night, a young operator monitoring the deep-sea sensors noticed something new. The ocean floor, where the creature was believed to rest, had begun to shift. The readings showed massive movement, as if something was slowly rising from the depths. The operator froze, staring at the numbers climbing higher. He tried to contact his superior, but his headset filled with static. Then faintly through the noise he heard a sound, a low, slow breath, almost human. The next morning, the sensors returned to normal. The ocean looked calm, but the operator never spoke again about what he heard. Some said he left his post voluntarily. Others said he was transferred to a remote station far from any ocean. Weeks later, a new phenomenon appeared in the skies. Satellites detected faint blue lines glowing faintly in the upper atmosphere, the same glowing patterns once seen beneath the sea. They formed and faded every few hours, always in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat signal. Whatever lived below was now linked with the sky above. One scientist described it best. It's not confined to the ocean anymore. It's spreading. Or maybe it always has been, and we're just starting to see it. The council tried to reach out one last time, sending a message directly to Earth's network. It was short and simple. Do you control it? Hours later, Earth replied, "No one controls the planet." That was the last transmission the galaxy ever received from humanity. The council stopped all attempts to contact them after that. Earth became completely isolated, by choice and by fear. The planet's orbit was declared restricted. No ship was allowed within 10 light years. The area was marked red on every navigational map, labeled simply, "Do not enter." But legends have a way of surviving, even in silence. Among travelers, stories grew, of a blue world that hums softly when you get too close, of a heartbeat that can be felt through metal and bone, of a voice whispering in the static of long-distance radios. Most dismissed it as myth, but a few old pilots swore they'd felt it themselves. The pulse, the pull, the quiet warning to turn back, and somewhere in the deep, dark ocean of Earth, far below where light can ever reach, something stirred. Its heartbeat echoed through stone, water, and air. It had slept for millennia, watching civilizations rise and fall, protecting the fragile life above it. But now it was fully awake. The stars were moving again. Something was coming. And this time, the creature wasn't just guarding Earth. It was waiting for the ones who had dared to look into the abyss. Because in the silence of space, the oldest truth had always been the same. Some places are not meant to be touched. The silence after the second vanishing was almost worse than the event itself. The galaxy had gone completely quiet. No ships, no transmissions, no trade routes passing near Earth anymore. The stars around the solar system became lonely, like a neighborhood everyone had suddenly moved away from. The fear of what slept beneath Earth's oceans had turned even the bravest explorers into cowards. But inside the planet, deep below the calm blue surface, something was stirring again. It began slowly, tremors so faint that no one noticed them at first. The ocean floor shifted slightly, causing gentle waves to brush against distant shores. People living near coastlines began to feel it before the instruments did. Fishermen heard strange humming sounds coming from deep under their boats at night. Divers reported glowing trails in the darkness, twisting like veins of light through the black water. The governments ignored the early reports. They had learned one lesson well: avoid attention, keep the world calm. Yet beneath that calm surface, those who worked in secret knew the truth. The creature, or whatever ancient power existed in the depths, was no longer quiet. In a hidden facility beneath the Pacific, the deep-sea sensors began to pick up regular pulses again. This time, though, they were faster and stronger, like a warning or a countdown. The scientists monitoring them exchanged nervous glances every time the signal appeared. It wasn't random. The rhythm was too precise, too measured. Someone whispered that it almost sounded like a code. Outside, humanity carried on as usual. Children went to school, people went to work, and screens were filled with distractions. Nobody knew that just a few miles beneath them, something older than history was waking up. One night during a heavy storm, the sensors detected an enormous surge of energy under the Pacific. At first, they thought it was a tectonic shift. But it wasn't an earthquake. The readings didn't match any natural pattern. The source was moving, rising, like something alive. Inside the control center, alarms flashed red. A young analyst looked at the data and whispered, "It's coming up." His supervisor froze, unable to respond. The pressure readings spiked. Waves began to rise across the ocean surface in massive spirals, though no wind could explain them. Satellites orbiting Earth picked up the event instantly. The glow beneath the sea spread across hundreds of miles, forming massive circular patterns that looked almost like ancient symbols. But then, just as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The readings dropped back to normal. The glow faded. The sea became calm again, perfectly still, as if nothing had happened. The scientists didn't know what to make of it. But the creature wasn't gone. It was waiting. For the next few weeks, strange things began happening all over the world. Magnetic fields shifted in unpredictable ways. Birds migrated in circles. Whales changed their songs. Deep-sea communication cables picked up faint vibrations. Whispers, not human, but rhythmic, like a language made of sound. Every time they tried to record it, the audio systems failed. At first, the military thought it was interference. But the signals had a pattern. They were directed outward, not inward. Whatever was below the ocean wasn't talking to Earth. It was sending messages into space. That discovery terrified the few who understood it. If the creature was communicating beyond Earth, then who or what was it calling? In the weeks that followed, faint energy bursts began appearing far beyond the solar system. The signals weren't strong enough to identify clearly, but they matched the pulse patterns from Earth. Something out there was responding. The realization sent panic through the hidden global council. For years, Earth had been protected by something powerful, something no one fully understood. But now it was clear, the planet's guardian wasn't acting alone. It was part of something larger, something connected across the stars. One night, as the sensors continued to track the pulses, a senior scientist noticed a new frequency added to the pattern. Softer, slower, like a second heartbeat joining the first. It meant only one thing: something was approaching. In deep space, far beyond Neptune's orbit, strange energy readings appeared. They didn't resemble any known technology. It wasn't a fleet. It was something different. The readings seemed to move like a living being, traveling through the void, and it was coming straight toward Earth. As the object drew closer, every satellite and observation system on the planet picked it up. The readings grew stronger, brighter, until finally a shape appeared on the screens. It wasn't a ship in the usual sense. It was vast, irregular, glowing faintly blue like a mountain of light drifting through space. It didn't use engines. It moved silently as if carried by invisible tides. People on the ground couldn't see it, but the atmosphere began to respond. The auroras near the poles flared brighter than ever before, covering the sky in waves of blue and white light. Electrical systems flickered all over the world. The hum from the ocean grew louder, echoing through the coasts. Then at midnight, the massive glowing object entered Earth's orbit. The whole planet seemed to hold its breath. Instead of attacking or landing, it stopped above the Pacific Ocean, directly above the place where the creature slept. For hours it hovered silently, a glowing shadow among the stars. Every nation on Earth watched, waiting, terrified. Then something incredible happened. The ocean below began to rise, not as a wave but as a wall of glowing water. The light from the sky and the sea merged together, connecting the two. People across the world could see it from space cameras, a brilliant column of light reaching from the deep ocean all the way into the heavens. Inside that light, faint shapes moved, vast fluid forms twisting gracefully. No one could tell if they were alive or made of energy. But the message was clear. They weren't enemies. They were meeting. For hours, the column of light pulsed softly, in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat signal that had haunted scientists for years. Then just before dawn, the light began to fade. The ocean settled again. The sky returned to normal. The glowing object drifted slowly away, disappearing into the darkness of space. When the light was gone, every instrument on Earth recorded one final pulse, strong, clear, and unmistakable. It wasn't a warning this time. It was a message. The translated data revealed something simple yet deeply unsettling. The message said, "The Guardians have returned." The cycle begins again. No one knew what it meant, but those words spread like wildfire among the few who saw them. The scientists and leaders who had been keeping the secret realized that Earth wasn't unique anymore. There were others, maybe other planets, other beings, part of the same ancient force. That night, a strange calm settled over the planet. The ocean waves returned to normal, but people everywhere reported hearing faint humming sounds in their dreams. Soft, deep, rhythmic, like the pulse of a heartbeat. Days passed. Weeks turned into months. The world's attention moved on, but something had changed forever. The stars above seemed different, brighter, closer, alive, and sometimes, late at night, deep-sea researchers swore they could still see faint blue patterns glowing far beneath the waves, moving in slow circles as if the planet itself was breathing. No one dared to disturb the ocean again. The Global Council dissolved their secret project and erased all records of the event. They understood that whatever lived beneath the Earth wasn't a threat, unless provoked. It had protected the planet twice already, and now that the Guardians had returned, humanity was being watched more closely than ever before. But there was one final mystery that no one could explain. The day after the light disappeared, a small unmanned probe orbiting the moon captured something extraordinary, a pattern carved deep into the lunar surface. It hadn't been there before. It was circular, made of faint glowing lines, and at its center was a shape identical to the pulse pattern from Earth's ocean floor. Was as if the same hand or being that marked the seas had touched the moon itself. When the image was shared, with a few trusted eyes, silence filled the room. One man whispered what everyone feared to say aloud. "It's preparing the next signal." As the months went by, Earth remained quiet. The guardian beneath the sea slept again. The stars stayed distant, though every now and then, telescopes picked up faint flashes like echoes not from far across the galaxy, answering the heartbeat in the dark. And while most of humanity lived unaware, those who knew could never forget. They understood now that Earth was not just a planet. It was part of something ancient, something vast, something that watched and waited. Because somewhere beyond the stars, the real secret of Earth was still unfolding. A secret no one could control, only witness. The Draconian fleet had vanished long ago, but their mistake had revealed the truth. Earth wasn't a victim. It was the heart of something greater, a living force that protected life itself. And the rest of the universe was finally beginning to realize that the blue world at the edge of the galaxy wasn't just a home. It was the beginning. When the documents were finally leaked, the world didn't believe them at first. Most people thought it was just another online hoax, one more strange story among thousands. But this time, the evidence was too strong to ignore. The files came from inside the European Deep Space Directorate, not a random blog, not an anonymous forum. The data carried real authentication codes, the kind used only by top-level scientists. Within hours, people everywhere began to talk about the same question. What if the Draconian fleet had never been alien at all? The first few pages of the leak contained coordinates, energy readings, and encrypted memos. But buried deeper in the documents were something even more shocking: genetic reports. The scientists had discovered that the signal from the vanished fleet contained traces of human DNA patterns. Not just similar, but identical in parts. It wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't an error. The data showed that whoever, or whatever, had sent that signal shared the same roots as humanity. At first, experts tried to dismiss it. They said maybe it was contamination, maybe a mistake in data handling. But when independent labs confirmed the findings, a quiet panic spread behind closed doors. If the Draconian fleet was connected to humans, then where had it come from? And why had it disappeared after reaching the solar system? An investigative journalist working for an international science channel got hold of a few pages before they were removed from the web. The notes were written by a senior astrophysicist who claimed that the fleet was never approaching Earth. It had been returning. According to the leaked papers, these vessels were linked to a forgotten chapter of Earth's own history, a part of the human story that had been lost long before recorded civilization began. It was hard for anyone to accept. The idea that an advanced human civilization might have existed millions of years before ours sounded impossible. But the documents didn't just make wild claims. They included photographs of carved symbols found deep beneath the Antarctic ice, the same place where the mysterious metallic structure had been discovered years earlier. Those markings matched the same pattern seen in the radio pulses that came from the Oort cloud. The pattern people had been calling the return signal. The deeper the researchers looked, the clearer the picture became. According to the recovered data, an ancient civilization, perhaps even human, had developed technology capable of bending gravity and traveling between stars. But at some point they left. Maybe it was a disaster, maybe a decision to escape a dying Earth. The records didn't say. All they revealed was that those who left promised to come back when the next kind was ready. It was that phrase, the next kind, that frightened the scientists most. Who were the next kind, us? If so, what did it mean to be ready? In the following weeks, major governments quietly issued blackout orders. Media channels were told to stop mentioning the leak. Online posts vanished within minutes. But by then, the story had already spread too far. Copies of the documents had been downloaded, printed, and even translated into multiple languages. People around the world were reading and debating. Some felt excited, others deeply uneasy. A few said that humanity's true origin had finally been revealed. Others feared that we had awakened something that was never meant to be touched. Meanwhile, strange things began happening across the planet. Observatories reported faint signals pulsing from beneath the oceans, the same frequency as the return signal. Some people noticed their electronic devices flickering at the exact same time, as if the world's electric pulse had synchronized with something unseen. Technicians tried to explain it as magnetic interference, but the timing was too perfect. Every surge matched the signal's rhythm. It was like the Earth itself was responding. As the days went by, more clues surfaced. Satellite footage caught short-lived flashes high above the atmosphere. For a few seconds, faint triangular silhouettes appeared, similar to those first recorded years earlier near Neptune. Then they vanished again. Whatever they were not random energy bursts. It felt as if something had activated in secret, something enormous yet silent, hidden between the layers of sky and space. The documents also revealed one final detail, a message fragment from the fleet before it disappeared. It wasn't written in any known language, but the translation software managed to decode a few lines. It said, "The children of Earth remember. The circle is complete." That short phrase sent chills down the spine of everyone who read it. It didn't sound like a threat, more like a statement, or maybe a realization. If those words were genuine, then humanity was not the beginning of intelligence on Earth. We were part of a continuing cycle, perhaps a renewal of something ancient. The Draconian fleet's vanishing wasn't a retreat or defeat. It was a trigger, a signal that something on Earth had reached the level required for the return. Scientists quietly debated what that might mean. Was it technology? Consciousness? A certain population size? Nobody knew for sure. But as weeks passed, subtle anomalies appeared in weather systems, magnetic readings, even in people's dreams. Psychologists reported a spike in identical dream descriptions across continents, visions of bright skies, floating structures, and an unspoken call to look up. Many dismissed it as mass suggestion, the power of rumor and media. Yet deep down, even skeptics admitted something had changed. The world felt different, not in a visible way, but in its atmosphere, like an invisible current had begun flowing through everything alive. A few retired officials eventually spoke anonymously. One of them said that buried deep in classified archives was a set of carvings found decades ago under the Sahara Desert, long before the Antarctic discoveries. Those carvings depicted the same symbols as the fleet's signal, thousands of years before humans could have known about it. He claimed the artifacts had been locked away in a government facility, labeled anomalous human origin evidence. No one outside those circles ever saw them again. By now, the idea that humanity had an older, forgotten ancestor civilization no longer sounded like fantasy. Even respected historians started to ask new questions. Ancient myths and texts from different cultures seemed to echo the same story. Gods who came from the sky taught knowledge, and then vanished with a promise to return. Maybe those stories were never about gods at all. Maybe they were distant memories of the Draconian civilization, the first Earthborn travelers who left to protect something, or to start again elsewhere. As word spread, the public mood began to shift. People were no longer focused on fear but curiosity. What if this truth didn't mean destruction but discovery? What if the Draconian fleet's message was a reminder that humans were more connected to the universe than anyone had believed. It was not about invasion but about identity, about remembering who we were before history forgot. Some months later, astronomers detected a faint, stable glow near the orbit of Pluto. Not natural, not a reflection, but a geometric formation. It pulsed softly, matching the same DNA-coded frequency found in the return signal. The phenomenon lasted only 2 hours before fading, but it was enough to convince many that the fleet was still nearby, invisible yet active, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. A global council of scientists proposed an idea. Instead of fearing the unknown, they would try to communicate. Not through words, but through resonance, a signal made from Earth's own electromagnetic heartbeat. They built a transmitter in a remote part of the Pacific, far from military interference. When it was activated, it sent a slow rhythmic pulse back into space, tuned to the same frequency found in the leaked data. For several days, there was silence. Then late one night, a faint echo came back. Not strong, not clear, but unmistakably structured. The echo carried one short message. We never left. The transmission cut off soon after, and no one could trace its source. Governments once again called for secrecy, claiming the signal was misinterpreted. But by then, people already knew. The evidence, the symbols, the DNA, all pointed to one truth that could no longer be buried. The Draconian fleet hadn't vanished into nothing. It had simply gone home. And home, it seemed, was not another world, but here, Earth itself. In the end, the terrifying secret wasn't about monsters or invaders. It was about origins. Humanity had always been part of a much older story, one written in the planet's memory and coded in our own blood. The fleet's disappearance was only the closing of one circle and the beginning of another. As people stood under the night sky, looking for signs, the stars seemed a little closer, the silence a little deeper. Maybe the ancient travelers were still out there watching, waiting. Or maybe they had already returned, not in ships, but in us. In the quiet awakening of a species finally starting to remember who it truly was. And though the governments continued to hide the truth, ordinary people began to see the pattern everywhere, in the pulse of the earth and the flicker of lights, in the feeling that something greater had quietly reconnected with the world. The Draconian fleet was gone, yes, but their message had already reached its destination. Humanity had heard it, and now nothing would ever be the same again.